We're creating about as many jobs as those other metros combined.
So Bend hates to be compared to Boulder.
We could have a whole hour conversation about this. I think it sets us up another kind of foundation.
Participating. I think that's the difference between being a citizen or sitting on the sidelines.
These conversations are brought to you by the Ladd Group, Bend's leading real estate team. Help continue this BendBeat conversation by subscribing, sharing, and leaving us a review. Chris Erin, thank you for joining me. Here today we are joined by Chris and Erin Vandervelde, primarily known in Bend as Tetherow. And we've known each other a long time, but I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much, Brian.
No, this will be fun. So we've known each other since about 2011, 2012.
End of 2010 is when I think you showed up, and you were pretty uptight.
Was I pretty uptight? Reality's worn me down in the last 12 years.
You definitely came in with a different vibe, and it was fun. It was a fun vibe because you were very serious about stuff, and you've just gotten. You got our vibe, you got the Bend vibe going, and you did a great job with that. And we found the market. We didn't know what the market was after that little dip in the economy.
Well, it was fun because I came in with a fresh eyes on what was happening. You know, I came on the backside of the Great Recession, all the struggles with a lot of the developments, especially Tetherow here in Bend, and I came in with a fresh set of eyes, and I looked at it and I was like, this is nothing but opportunity, and I hadn't been kicked in the teeth locally, so I was able to come in with fresh optimism when others were a little more worn out. So so I came in obviously to help sell the land and the development land position in Tetherow, and it's been fun to get to know you guys over the years. And what I would love to do is just talk about one, your role locally, kind of your origin story, longtime Oregonians, your involvement with Tetherow, and just kind of, talk about what makes you tick and because you've had a big role to play here in Central Oregon, in the built product of Tetherow, and to what is exciting for me is kind of the philosophy of how a resort community interacts with the community and city. And I think that's one of the most exciting things for me. But before we get to that, let's learn a little bit more about you guys, a little bit more about your origin story, how long you've been in Central Oregon, and how it kind of led you to where we stand today. Erin, do you want to start?
It's all you.
Okay. Well, I am a native Oregonian.
Yeah.
And I grew up in Eugene and spent my summers for my whole childhood coming up to Central Oregon, mostly when Sun River was a new and unknown quantity. Spent a lot of time there and at BendBeat Ranch. So Central Oregon, and I went to Camp Tamarack when that was a little girls' camp, and so Central Oregon has always had a really special place in my life, like it does so many people.
Yeah.
And what that led to for Chris and I was that when we were living in Europe, I needed time to see my family, so I would bring our family, our children, back, and we'd vacation in Central Oregon. Mm-hmm. And Chris didn't ever come because he was playing golf on the European tour.
Yep.
So I just brought the kids, and we'd have a fun couple of weeks at one of the resorts. And one day he finally came with us and fell in love with Central Oregon at the same time, that we did. And we took him out to Smith, and we went biking and hiking and exploring, and he got the bug and fell in love with it. We were at a time when we really weren't sure where we would end up long term.
Yeah.
So that was the fun part. His mother's an Oregonian, so he has been to Oregon, has a little bit of Oregon in his blood.
A little bit.
And
a lot of Oregon.
And his mother's family, they're all it's a timber family like my mother's family. So kind of touching the earth here. And I think having the opportunity to live in Central Oregon and take on this unique task of building a golf course and then a resort and a community, that wasn't something we necessarily anticipated.
Yep.
But when the opportunity presented itself, it felt like something that we were willing to tackle.
Yeah.
Or Chris was willing to tackle it for sure, which provided me the opportunity to come back to the States.
Try anything once.
Well, so Chris, you've made the comment you became a developer by default.
Yeah. So
let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I think what really happened, I the bottom of my heart, I'm an athlete, competitor, golfer, and I got involved in Tetherow because of the golf opportunity.
Yeah.
From when I was younger, I always wanted to be part of a world-class or own a world-class golf club. And we were living in the Netherlands. I built a course there, and it was cool. It's a very nice, high-end club, but it was never going to be, top 100 or whatever. And you need, in order to create a top 100 course, you need a beautiful site. You need just that natural beauty. Otherwise, Pebble Beach isn't what it is. Pebble Beach is number one. Pine Valley, those great courses have those things. And what happened in 2005, I was able to, I got to meet the original developers, and I got to meet David McClay Kidd, who did the first course at Bandon Dunes. And we were walking the site, and he was like, I can see a hole here. You could just see the course. You could see the enthusiasm in David, and then the enthusiasm with me. Just kind of, it was a great place to build a golf course. And we knew we were going to be. We got number one new course in 2008 when we first opened, and then the economy tanked, and our business partner Willem Willemstein and Aaron and I, we had a lot invested in the default. Everyone started defaulting. All the loans were out, et cetera, and that's where the real joke comes from. I became a real estate developer by default because we either had to let go of the golf course or take over all the stuff, and we were in a good position, a very strong position. And when things don't go well, if you have a financial backer like Willem, we were able to pick up parts of the resort for the right price and move it forward. And Aaron and I are lifelong learners, and we just started figuring out, okay, what kind of connection and community do we want to build here? And I think we did a pretty good job with that. And then you come in 2010. I think I met you in December in 2011, and it was a great partnership from the beginning. We got to know each other. We found the market. We put 5 lots out at a certain price, and then we went from there. And that's the sort of default that turned everything into what it is today. And then the challenging part for Aaron and I we were trying to figure it out with, okay, now we need to build a hotel. We need to build some more restaurants and a swimming pool and finish the resort. And you're in it, you're living it. We were living it, 70, 80 hours a week. And we did everything from clean dishes, wash dishes, dig ditches, bust tables, make beds in the hotel along the way because of everything that happened, and the ups and downs of what goes on. So, yeah, developer by default is what I, it's real.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a joke. It's kind of a fun joke. So, I didn't choose to do that, but I'm reasonably good at it, I think.
Well, you guys are very good at it, and I think if I were to try to write a bio of the roles that I've seen you perform over the last dozen years, it would include all those things, including dishwasher and whatnot. And for those on the outside, Tetherow did not happen by accident, and Tetherow was not successful by accident. There were, Pronghorn was probably the other end of the spectrum that, the music stopped and $1 million lot values went down to 0 to 10 grand. As long as you're willing to pay a club membership, you can have a credit, you can have a lot on a credit card. And your purchase or acquisition of the golf course in 2009 was probably the only golf course acquisition in the U.S. that year, right?
So again, our partner, Willem Willemstein, it took me a good 6 months to convince him that it was a good deal.
Yeah.
And, in hindsight, I look brilliant now, 15 years later, but I had my doubts. What am I doing? This is one of my best friends. I'm convincing him to invest a shit ton of money in Central Oregon.
And at that time, Bend wasn't what it is today.
2008, 2009 was a pretty pessimistic feel.
Oh,
bleak.
people had left town. We didn't know if we could sell a lot for $125,000 there then, and that seems almost hard to understand now. So if you compare then to now, and people were like, no one thought Bend could recover from that.
Yeah.
it was that pessimistic. So
But
it
we-
was
we
a
all
dicey
believe- We
move.
believed in it.
Yeah,
really.
it was a beautiful piece of property. That is a saving grace. It had a really great philosophy. It had great bones, and it had a great location.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure you kept the doors open with a lot of months and quarters of showing losses, to see that vision through.
And that's a tribute to our business partner Willem Willemstein, because you have to have, he's a very successful businessman, but to have the foresight
Yeah.
to say, okay, I see how cool this community is. I mean, he lives in Europe, lives in Holland, and they don't have mountains like this. And you see the mountains, and you see his family comes over here at least every other year for 2-week vacation and take him hiking. We've taken him rafting, and he's skied here. It's like Central Oregon. If you haven't experienced it, this is a pretty cool place.
Yeah.
And I think the people that, like Aaron talked about growing up as a child here, it's great. I mean, I know that that there aren't a ton of Bendites that grew up here that still live here. I mean, there's a few. But if you come here and you see it, then you're gonna, I'll never leave here. This is a cool place.
Yeah, he's probably an unknown name that had a big impact on the economic recovery of Bend.
Yeah.
That most people don't
No,
know.
he did, and I do remember in those hard years, because you have to have a pretty big stomach to foot those losses year after year. You have to have a good imagination to see and understand that real estate values can recover and do recover. You have to be willing to spend money to make money, which not everyone is willing to do, and then to trust some people.
A golfer and a kindergarten teacher.
And I had just stopped teaching kindergarten when we moved here, which is it helped me do what we do, my skills as a kindergarten teacher. But I remember literally, people didn't even know where Tetherow was, but I remember during that time feeling so thankful for Willem because of how many people we were employing during this really hard recovery phase.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, I'm not sure that that's the top of mind for him, but I just, as a couple trying to manage the resort, I've always been proud of the fact that we've taken our responsibility as employers as seriously as possible, and tried to keep a strong commitment to the community by providing jobs, which was it's one of the goals that the state had when they decided that they would provide that property with a resort overlay. They were looking for jobs for Central Oregonians, and we've been able to provide a lot of jobs for people, and I'm proud of that, and I think Willem is too, in a roundabout way, because he doesn't have to engage with it. But I'm proud of all the people we've met who've contributed to the success of the resort, just like you have, and your team. We've had so many people, make a difference there.
Well, the deep, authentic connection to the town cannot be overstated. I think it's real, it's legitimate, and I've been able to witness that for the last 12 plus years, and it's been a pleasure. That's probably one of the more exciting things for me about Tetherow, is that it's not a closed gate, closed door community that doesn't interact with town, and I think that starts with you guys. How have you been able to keep it connected to the community? And I know that, on the surface, there's so many visible points from all your supports of the nonprofits and Cork and Barrel and the Kids Center and all these other things. And anytime anyone in the community says, we need help, we need a forum, we need a space, we need access to your membership, you guys are always there, not questioning that. But how did you drive the culture of Tetherow so that it's accessible, so that people, it's not a closed door community, that they're proud to be members and owners and part of the community?
So I'll start and let Aaron finish. But when I became that developer by default, I had this idea that developers they would go in and, for lack of a better word, clear cut areas and make money off it.
Yeah.
And David's a minimalist designer, so the golf course is kind of laid into the landscape. I had to come up with my own vision and mission for what I wanted it to be. And what I believe, this is one of my core beliefs in life, is that connection, family and friends, you're going to have that with 5 to 10 people outside your immediate family in your whole life. But those connections, being able to create a community that will energize and inspire people to have those connections, that's the whole goal around it. And that was, I had to come up with that and say, okay, I want to build cool places for people to have those connections. You know, we're trying to do the same thing now on the coast. We have a piece of property there, and it's very interesting because if you lose insight to your vision and mission, you will make compromises in your daily decisions, because they'll show up and you'll have daily decisions like, oh, we can get rid of that. But I have to go to Aaron and Willem, who are my 2 partners on the board, and say, listen, I think that we got to keep this. Or she goes, we got to keep this because of this, and this part of what we're trying to do. And Willem, he has to make the decision, I want to spend the money on it or not. And we did all those things. And I think that energy and inspiration also, it attracts people that are like-minded. I mean, like attracts like, and then people will come into town. And one of my other monikers was, we're not your grandfather's country club. I've never been like that. I played the tour, and I didn't like stuffy, oh, you're not welcome clubs. And I think that Tetherow really tries to welcome people in. And, I think that those 3 or 4 things, the energize, inspire people, the welcome attitude, and our team, our staff. Yeah. I mean, I can think about people for the last 15, 20 years that just bought into that and played into that. And, the early years are a lot of entrepreneurial type people that, I mean, they would throw the best parties in town. Yeah. Can't really do that now, but the first 5 years it was wild.
I remember, wasn't it the parties down on Stafford Court with big speakers in the streets?
It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was great. It was some great times. I mean, you can speak to that a little bit too about how the community, we keep it.
Yeah, it's real. It's approachable.
I think that might come from us. We like nice things, but we think that nice things don't have to necessarily be behind closed doors and closed gates all the time. And I think one of the other focuses that we have is on how we are as neighbors. Like we understand that we're neighbors to a lot of other communities. We're neighbors to the city of Bend. We're neighbors to the mountain. So we have implicitly a fundamental kind of opportunity and responsibility to be good neighbors as a community. Yeah. And everyone's lives are enriched if you can integrate the environment around you and respect and honor it and develop positive relationships with them. Then you become good neighbors.
Brian Ladd here. I hope you're enjoying the conversation and find this dialogue relevant to really what it means to live and work and play in this amazing community. As Ben's leading real estate team, we take our role seriously in representing both buyers and sellers at the absolute highest standards of our industry. For more information on how we can help, feel free to visit our website at benpropertysource.com or text LADD1, LADD1 to 88,000.
I brought my father there, and he came from a traditional country club, and he pulls up, and Chris is out there on his skateboard, a golf board with buckles, and then they have the motorcycle, what do you call those motorcycles?
Fin scooters.
Fin scooters. And my dad, that's exactly what he said. He goes, this is different, and he goes, golf is dying all over the U.S. and there's energy here and it's accessible, and we're removing unnecessary barriers, cultural or otherwise, to interacting.
Yeah, those are fun things. I mean, I think part of that connection is having fun, and it's not only that, but also the design of the vacation homes. When we were building vacation homes or some of the new neighborhoods, we took a more traditional neighborhood, tighter lots, where you walk by your neighbors and you see them and you get to communicate. And the club is. I think that they do a really good job of not being snobby. Yeah. Again, we have a private club. We have private members that love being part of the community and love they have that certain privileges that you can't. But there's a balancing act, but it works. I mean, it actually, and I think you'll see more clubs like this come up around the country because it's so successful.
Yeah.
There were 2 or 3 other clubs that I modeled this after.
Yeah.
There were only 2 other ones before us, and now there's a few more coming up. And I think the model really works, and I think that the community buys into it because everyone at Tetherow is a golfer social member. So they support the sport building, they support the clubhouse, they come and they dine in the restaurants, and it's just a lot of clubs have food minimums. We have a discount for our members.
Yeah.
Because you have resort pricing, but you need a discount for your members. So they appreciate all that, and it's just things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of crossover and pollination. I mean, traditionally, country clubs or resorts like this, you go into the restaurants and the dining and it's empty and you're forced to spend money there whether you want to or not. And it's quite the opposite, après ski and in the row is the happening place in town.
As long as there's snow.
It's been a bit of a challenge this year. But yeah, it's been fun to watch. And I think the importance and the spark that was created and doubling down in 2009, 10, 11, I think had a multiplier effect in our community that's hard to measure because I remember, those homes that, you brought it up, that the tour home and whatnot, a couple tour homes in 2011. I remember that was some of those builders' only home of the year. And a lot of those contractors, it was the only job they had that year, and that kept them in business. And each one of those model homes spun off into 3 or 4 bills for each one of those builders, and then it spun off 30 lot sales the year after. And the multiplier effect on the construction, it kept people swinging hammers, and the people that didn't keep swinging hammers left town. And when we lost that skill set, they didn't come back. And so it was a heartbeat to keeping plumbers, electrician, car mechanics, et cetera, all going. And if we were to do the spin-off effect of a couple $1 million of construction in a year where nothing else was happening, it was pretty big.
I mean, what's the stat on how many people are building one house? Isn't there a stat on how many
Well, yeah,
jobs?
I guess every house has 300 or 400 workers go through it. And then, but I think they're saying a production house has an equivalent of like 4 full-time jobs, but the scale of the homes that are going in Tetherow, I think it's a multiple of that. Probably every house is employing 10 to 12 people directly. And then you look at the work trucks in the driveway buying from the Ford dealership, et cetera. I mean, the spin-off of it is, there's no better ways to keep money moving through a local economy than house construction.
Right. No, and
Exactly.
and then I think also the destination resort overlay and creating, there's in the summertime there's 250 plus jobs at Tetherow, and we're not. You've got bigger ones. You got Mount Bachelor and St. Charles and other ones that are bigger. But like Erin said earlier, I think that we're very proud of it, and I think that Willem is as well. That we did our part as far as what the state mandates were with destination resort. We got that all. That was a big challenge for other developers looking at it because it's you have to build certain things, so.
Yeah, it's programmed by the state and resorts,
And we never asked for an extension.
No.
Yeah, never asked for an extension. Yeah, they're getting a little more contentious too. I was talking to the county commissioner who said resorts kind of did their thing and we don't need them anymore. And there's other people think that we need more. So, I know that resort overlay is a contentious thing, especially kind of depends on where it is geographically.
Yep.
But I would wholly agree that Tetherow did its duty.
Yeah.
It met the vision of what the state wanted out of a resort.
Yeah, and I think Central Oregon does have a lot of resorts and a lot of golf courses. And one thing that I appreciate is that they all have their own special flavor and their own special qualities.
Yep.
Sometimes you feel like you're in competition with other resorts, but I've never really felt that way because I've grown up going to the other resorts. And so people get to come to Tetherow for reasons if it fits them.
Yeah.
They get to go to Sun River if it fits them, and Black Butte. I think we just we have created kind of a sort of city forest vibe that people who like that really feel comfortable in. The proximity certainly helps certain people. Some people want to just get away and not be near us, but. I think even you have ways of getting away even when you're on our property, but that's what I like about Central Oregon is there's so much opportunity and option here, and it's just nice to be, in such a. I think one thing and this isn't really on topic, but one thing I think that is so special about Tetherow, and people say it, and I remember feeling it, is you come up on property and there's an energy there, there's a vibe there, and it's kind of woo-woo when you talk about it to other people, but I've had so many people come up and say that to us that I've really started to trust it. There is a really positive energy from the nature and from the positivity and from the maybe even from the buildings, and I think it just makes people happy.
Well, you've seen a lot of growth and changes. You've been a big part of it. What's your hope for Bend? Because we're kind of at a big inflection point of Bend. We're now 100,000 people. We're not a small town. We're not even a small city at this point. We have houseless issues, homeless issues. We have housing affordability issues with the average price of housing $800,000. And now that you've got children and grandchildren in play that want to also build their lives here, what's the case for optimism, or how do you look at where we stand as a community right now? I mean, I know that's a big and open-ended question, but what gives you hope for the future with where we stand right now in Bend?
That's a good question. I think I lived in Eugene when it was right about this size.
Okay.
And so it's really funny to hear those numbers because it reminds me, I remember the population back then, and it was a small town where you kind of felt like you knew each other, but there was all these other components, the university. I think a lot of people have brought a lot of good things to Bend. What does worry me a little bit, because I love the old Bend that feels a little bit cozier and doesn't take itself quite so seriously as it might now. I think I want people to still keep coming here for the right reasons, and my reasons aren't necessarily the right reasons, but people who can appreciate the beauty, who can be kind to each other, who can be respectful, who can appreciate nature, and bring qualities to all of the communities here without getting kind of selfish about either development or whatever other components are. I think I think that's what a lot of people want, is a bigger city with a small town feel. I don't know if it's achievable. I've never studied it. I think if we had the opportunity to do development here, it would be high on my list. It's always been high on my list to try to figure out how to provide more affordable housing.
Yep.
I don't know how to do that personally, and we're busy trying to accomplish that at the coast. But I think people need to try to be thoughtful about not destroying the ability for all folks to come and live here, especially, like you say, with grandkids. And there was a time when we first moved here that there wasn't enough business opportunity for people's children to come back here and work. I heard a lot of business professionals say that their kids had to go work somewhere else because they couldn't get jobs here. That has changed. A lot of people can have, my kids can stay in this town and work, and I love that. So that's a real viable community opportunity, but I think we need to make sure we can provide housing of all types for all kinds of folks, and that's my wish. I don't know how to participate in making that happen, but I'd like to.
I think you very eloquently delivered what a lot of people get out of. They want to maintain that small town spirit. They want to maintain that the inclusionary aspect of where we've been without, while harnessing this growth and craziness of Bend into the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I echo everything you said, and I think that I'm still involved with city planners and some of the county planners and see what's going on with some of the stuff. And I think the Southeast Area Plan, they've done a great job with that, and they're trying to get, we've got a project that we're looking at developing on that side of town, and I know that Hayden Watson's involved out there, Polish Homes is involved out there. There's a lot of good stuff coming in that part of town, and the city has been proactive with new high schools, new middle schools, and these new neighborhoods are coming up. With the right mindset, we can probably fix some of the housing issues. Actually, one of our members, his family has a affordable building company developer. They develop affordable areas. So I've been talking to him about things you could do in the areas. It has to happen. I mean, if you look at a place like Aspen, I mean, Aspen exploded. And if you work there, you can't live there. So the nearby towns also benefit from that because you get apartments or houses, markets out there, and maybe you have to drive 20, 30 minutes to get to work. But, compared to a big city, that's nothing.
Yeah.
But we're sensitive to that because of our employees also. I mean, it's hard for our employees to not be able to live near work or have to drive a half hour to get to work. That's tough on everybody, and I think we live that every day,
Yeah, so it's, I think that Bend is actually being very proactive.
Absolutely, I wholeheartly agree.
I see that. I've been to other cities and
they're not addressing it.
It's like, whoa, what are you doing? I
Yeah.
mean, and Bend is doing a great job of that. Deschutes County is doing a great job of that. So I think that we need to support that as not just as developers, but as citizens. Development's going to happen. That's back to my thing, developer by default. But I had to think about these things, along the way and going like, okay, you can do this way, or you can do it with a loving hand and think about the community and what's going on. And I think that, Bend has to kind of mandate to any new projects, new developments, look, give us a couple options. Let us see what's the best for the whole community as a whole before we give an approval, before we do this. And I think that they've got some really good people in place to do that. So I'm proud of the place we live. I know it's growing fast. I know if I was a Bendite 30, 40 years ago, I'd probably think this sucks. But I remember when Sisters got a stoplight for about a month or two, and then they took it out because they didn't like that in Sisters. Now they got a roundabout there instead. So, I mean, it's growth and change that's going to happen. How do we do it the right way? And those are questions we need to keep asking each other.
Well, I think everything you both just said will hopefully help people expand their definition of what a developer is. And I think it's so easy to polarize what a developer is and what they're doing. And there are a lot of negative developers out there that I speak with that really don't care about the land use laws of Oregon. They don't want the 1970s land use laws. They want to be able to put out grid subdivisions in every which way, and they think that's their solution to the housing issues and whatnot that we have. But the majority of the developers and builders I talk to are more in the line of you guys of saying, we're here for a reason. We love Oregon, we love the landscape of Oregon, and we're going to work within the laws and the models that we have to develop a cool future. It's not the easiest way to do it. I mean, the easiest way to do it is move to California or Idaho and pop out 40-acre subdivisions that are on a grid pattern. But the people that are here fighting the good fight, I think the end result is amazing. It's just, it's a lot harder job.
It's a little bit harder. It takes a little more time. Yeah.
It takes time, and you have to have that vision and mission, and you have to stick with it. And you're going to make compromises, but have your core ones that you think you can stick with. And if you can stick with those and live with them, your decisions will benefit the community as a whole.
And I was thinking too just now, we lived in the Netherlands for 16 years, and having grown up in Oregon where you have land, lots of land, lots of space, lots of elbow room, we used to get mad at the Californians for coming in and building a huge house with a little bit of grass around it because we liked our little house with a lot of grass around it. Moved to Holland and had a completely different experience because of the nature of cramming 16 million people into this tiny bit of land. So we got to see housing and community and building and development from a completely different experience. And I think that has informed a little bit how we view what's going on here. It's kind of this push and pull against providing enough housing for everyone with enough space that Oregonians and Westerners value. Mm-hmm. It's a funny trade-off, but I think that that's also been kind of something that's helped us have a vision that is slightly different than maybe what we started with before we got into the business.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, the American dream of, you know, quarter-acre lots and a picket fence around the whole thing is good for some communities, and we definitely have some of that here in Bend. But I think what's most exciting for me is what you guys are talking to of whole communities within our community, and mixed housing types, mixed employment, mixed densities. And I think for anyone that's on the outside that says Bend doesn't know what they're doing, I don't think they're giving enough credence to the amount of forethought that the developers in the city are putting into creating a pretty interesting, viable future. And when I look at the nodes of communities that they're trying to do in Northeast and Southeast and Southwest, where you can have whole community and whole lifestyles, micro lifestyles within the bigger swath that is Bend, it's pretty exciting for me. And it may not be the whole, you know, the vision of 1980s Bend of where the whole community is downtown Bend. You know, there's going to be 10 of those within the city boundary, but I still think that we're going to have a pretty interactive, exciting experience that I don't see being replicated in any other town. You know, there's some towns that appear like Bend because they have geographical constraints, you know, resort towns or whatnot. But when you peel off and look under the hood of those towns, they're not addressing the community values of mixed housing and all that, like Bend is. So it's pretty exciting.
No, there's some fun projects going in. Every time I see a new one, it's like, what's going on there? I don't have time to get involved, but what's going on? So,
well, change is tough, and you guys have been here for the long ride, and I just wanted to give some exposure to your story. This has been an interesting, fun ride to observe and participate in, and you know, I think that everyone in Bend needs to know more about what you guys have done.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This was a lot of fun.
It's been a fun ride with you too. So.
Well, the ride can be in a bunch of different, either from work or I was just envisioning some of our rapids that we've run together. I think we're up to about 1,000 river miles together. Well, we did what? We did almost 300 miles in the Grand.
Yeah. Yeah, we're at 1,000.
Yeah.
We've been down the middle 5 times together, so it's 500. Yeah,
Not quite 1,000.
We're getting there. Keep pushing it.
We need to have a few more trips. We'll get there.